So what you're talking about here are, constraints and kind of providing that level of guidance. And so constraints are often kind of framed as creative fuel. I'm just curious which ones you think, and you've talked already about the strategy, but which ones do you think generally make the work better, and which are, constraints you think teams should push back on?
I think there's two kinds of constraints. One of them is a gift, and that's the deadline. Because if you don't have a deadline, it goes on and on. Um, Another kind of constraint resolves around goals and objectives. A mentor I had a long time ago taught me a formula, and the formula is that relevant times distinctive equals effective in your communications. And he said, think of it as multiplication. So if your creative is one, if you've really nailed the creative, but your relevance to the target audience or target market is zero, the net result is zero. Um, and so you really have to pay attention to, but it's like an architect, right? And I used to hire writers who were studying to be architects or who were fans of architects, because an architect is constrained by the landscape, by the client's objectives, what it is they want to achieve, the materials they work with. But that doesn't mean they can't be creative. In fact, they're some of the most creative people out there, but they understand the value of the constraints. I'd say the other constraint, and this is a negative constraint, is assumptions, really. Very often you have clients, but also creatives who make assumptions about the target audience or assumptions about the product that sound good, that seem intuitive, but aren't right. So I would always encourage people to challenge the assumptions that are underpinning the work they're about to do.
Along those same lines, I mean, I guess, thinking about constraints, I guess you could argue process is also constrained in terms of, it's supposed to help creativity, but for some teams it becomes the enemy. I mean, what would you say is that right structure that creative teams need to do their best work?
Well, I would say rule number one is remember that the client is not your enemy. It's always fun as a creative behind the scenes to talk about the client and make fun about the client, make fun of the client. But the truth is that if the client doesn't succeed, you don't succeed. So I have always believed that it's very important. And when I talk about the client, I'm not talking about the entire organization. I'm not talking about the brand. I'm talking about the individual or the small team of individuals that you're working with. So I've always felt it's very important to be on the same side, um, to bring them in to help you through the process of understanding the product, the brand, the market, and so on. And equally important, to equip them to tell the story through the organization, to help them explain why. This is why I hate spec creative, right? Because spec creative is based on a one-page brief, right? There's no underpinnings to it, and how can you choose an agency or a brand development partner without having the solid understanding that Ernest Hemingway was talking about? It's like trying to paint a house before you've built it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So build into the process a way that the client can equip them to sell through the organization, not just the creative output, but the story behind the output and how you got there.